All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling government contracting, specifically for scientific and technical services. And just imagine, you're a company, you've got these big dreams of working with the U.S. government on these really cutting-edge scientific projects. What would it actually take to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, I think we've got something that might help us answer that today. We've got a real-life document. It's a sources sought questionnaire, and it's straight from the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. And this is basically the government's way of saying, okay, who's out there? Who are the right companies that might be a good fit for this complex project? And they do this before they even start accepting proposals.
It's like a sneak peek behind the curtain of how the government makes decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that really jumped out at me at the beginning of this questionnaire is there's a whole section about company size and socioeconomic status. Things like, is it a small business? Women-owned, veteran-owned. Why do you think they focus on that so much?
Well, I think it really shows the government's focus on supporting a diverse range of businesses. And that's a common thing we see in government contracting. It's all about promoting fairness and opportunity, making sure that contracts aren't just going to the same big players over and over again. In fact, sometimes certain contracts are specifically set aside for businesses that qualify under these categories.
So it's not just about like having the best tech or the smartest scientists, right? It's about fitting into a bigger picture of how we create a more inclusive economy.
Exactly. The government's looking at the broader impact, not just the immediate project needs.
And you know what else is interesting? The questionnaire really digs into a company's experience. They ask things like, how many staff have you transitioned between contracts? What's the largest payroll you've ever managed? It seems like they really want to know if a company can handle the logistics of a really big project.
Yeah, and those specific aspects they're focusing on there, the payroll, staff transitions, it almost suggests they are a little wary of those contractors who might struggle with staffing up during a project.
Oh, sure.
Because think about it, if you have staffing issues, that leads to delays, which could lead to cost overruns. And ultimately, that could even jeopardize the success of the whole project.
So it's not just about companies that have done big projects before. It's about companies that have done big projects and have also shown they can manage the people side of things effectively.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing risk for the government.
Now, this one kind of surprised me. They ask about whether the company has a government-approved accounting system. I wouldn't have even thought that was a big deal. Can you explain why that matters?
Well, you have to remember, we're talking about public funds here. So the government has this huge responsibility to ensure transparency and accountability in how those funds are used. So having a government-approved accounting system basically means a company's financial records are subject to very specific regulations and oversight mechanisms, things like audits, compliance checks. It's all about making sure taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly.
So it's not just about having a good accountant. You need a whole accounting system that meets these very specific standards.
Exactly. It's a whole different ballgame when you're dealing with government money.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to see how much more there is to this whole government contracting thing than I initially thought. And there's another thing I noticed in this questionnaire. It asks us about location. Like, where can a company actually provide services? What geographic area do they cover? I mean, that seems pretty straightforward, right? Just making sure they can actually do the work where it needs to be done.
Sure, that's definitely part of it. But I think it also hints at something more strategic. You see, the government often tries to distribute work across different parts of the country, maybe to stimulate economic growth in certain regions, or to support businesses in underserved communities.
So even something as simple as location could give a company a little bit of an edge if it aligns with the government's goals.
Exactly. You got to understand the bigger picture and position your company accordingly.
Now let's talk about talent. This questionnaire really zeroes in on the challenge of finding qualified people to do this really specialized scientific work. There are all these questions about filling specific STEM labor categories, like which ones are easy, which ones are hard, and why. This seems like a huge issue for companies trying to win these contracts.
It is, and this kind of speaks to the larger issue of STEM workforce shortages. This affects both the government and the private sector. I mean, the competition for top talent is fierce, and companies need to be able to show that they can not only attract, but also retain the best and the brightest.
And speaking of retention, the questionnaire goes really deep on employee benefits, paid time off, professional development opportunities, even 401k plans. It's like they're saying, hey, we care about how you treat your employees.
That's a great observation. And I know some people might argue that focusing on employee benefits just adds costs. for contractors and ultimately drives up the price of these government projects. But here's the thing. Investing in employee well-being is absolutely crucial for attracting and retaining top talent, especially in such a competitive market. And plus, the government often sets standards for contractors regarding employee treatment and benefits. They want to ensure a fair and ethical working environment.
So it's not just good business practice, it's almost like a requirement if you want to be competitive in this space.
Exactly. It's something companies really need to prioritize.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already. And it's clear that working with the government requires a lot more than just having the right scientific expertise.
It definitely does. It's about understanding the government's priorities, demonstrating your ability to manage these complex projects effectively, and showcasing a commitment to diversity, ethical practices, and employee well-being.
Sounds like a tall order, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here.
You're absolutely right. There's still so much more to unpack, especially when it comes to the collaborative nature of government contracting and the importance of proving your capabilities with concrete examples.
Well, I'm ready to keep digging. Let's do it.
So, one thing that really stands out in the Sources Sought questionnaire is how much it emphasizes the whole collaborative nature of government contracting. Like, there's a whole section about prime versus team arrangements and the experience companies have working together. Now, I know some people might not be familiar with those terms, so maybe we should break that down a little bit.
Yeah, that would be great, because it's easy to get lost in all the government lingo.
Absolutely. So basically, a prime contractor is like the lead company on a project. They're the ones directly contracted by the government, and they're ultimately responsible for the project's success. But on these large, complex projects, it's pretty common for that prime contractor to bring in other companies as subcontractors or team members. And each team member kind of brings their own specialized expertise to the table.
Like a puzzle, right? Where each piece is crucial to completing the whole picture.
Exactly. And this questionnaire really digs deep into those team dynamics. It asks about the roles of the different partners, the percentage of work each partner is going to handle, even their past experience working together.
So they're not just looking for a bunch of individual superstars, right? They want to see a well-coordinated team
Yeah.
that can really function smoothly and effectively.
You got it. It's not enough to just list your team members and their qualifications. You need to show how that team is going to work together seamlessly. How are they going to leverage each other's strengths? How are they going to anticipate potential challenges? Think of it like a well-conducted orchestra. Each musician plays their part perfectly in sync with the others, creating this harmonious and really powerful performance.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've established that the government cares a lot about a company's experience, their approach to employee well-being, and their ability to collaborate effectively. But at the end of the day, they also want to see some proof, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The final section of this questionnaire is all about show me the receipts. Don't just tell me you can do it. Show me that you've done it before. So they ask companies to provide concrete examples of past projects. Projects that were technically complex, high throughput, required specialized labor.
It's like that moment in a job interview when you can pull out your portfolio and say, look, here's tangible evidence of what I can do.
Exactly. And these examples need to be detailed and compelling. The questionnaire even asks for specific contract numbers, the value of the contract, the number of staff involved, a clear description of the challenges they overcame and the results they achieved. This is not about vague boasts or marketing hype. It's about hard data and verifiable evidence.
It's like building a case file.
Yeah.
You're presenting a compelling argument for why your company is the best choice for this particular project.
Right. And I think the key here is relevance. The examples you choose should really closely align with the specific requirements and challenges of the project that are outlined in this Sources Sought questionnaire. So let's say the project involves developing a new vaccine. Well, you're going to want to showcase your experience with similar projects in the past, highlighting your expertise in vaccine development, clinical trials, regulatory compliance.
So you need to tailor your show me the receipts section to demonstrate that you really understand the nuances of this specific project and that you have a proven track record of success in similar endeavors.
Exactly. You're connecting the dots for the government, showing them that you're not just a generic science company. You're the science company for this specific project.
This questionnaire, it's almost like a personality test for companies.
In a way, yeah. And I think that's a really important takeaway for anyone looking to work with the government. It's not just about having the technical skills or the scientific knowledge. It's about demonstrating that you understand the government's priorities, that you align with their values. and that you have that proven track record of success.
Okay, so to all of our deep divers out there, I think we've explored this sources sought questionnaire pretty thoroughly, and we've gained some valuable insights into what the government looks for in a potential contracting partner. But before we wrap up, I believe you have a final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
All right, so imagine this. You're a company and you're hoping to secure a government contract for this really challenging scientific project. What would be your secret weapon? What would make you stand out from all the other amazing companies who are also trying to get that same opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question. What would make a company really shine in this situation?
Well, I think the sources sought questionnaire actually gives us some clues. Remember all those questions about specific labor categories and how hard it is to fill certain STEM roles. I think that's where a company could really differentiate itself.
So it's like there's this hidden talent competition
Yeah.
within the larger competition.
Yeah, exactly. Like, imagine a company that consistently attracts these top bioinformatics experts, even when everyone's struggling to find them. Maybe they have this really unique training program, or a stellar reputation for professional development, or a company culture that's just super appealing to those in-demand specialists. That kind of recruiting would make them a really strong contender.
And it's not just about attracting that talent, right? It's about keeping it. We talked about the importance of benefits and how the government really looks at that.
Oh, absolutely. A company that invests in their employees, offering things like generous paid time off, professional development, those 401k plans, that sends a strong signal to the government. It says, look, we value our people, we invest in their growth, we create a supportive and rewarding environment.
Yeah.
And you know what that leads to?
What's that?
Higher retention rates, a more engaged workforce, and better outcomes for those government projects.
So it's not just about, checking off boxes on a questionnaire. It's about telling a story.
Yeah.
That showcases your technical capabilities, but also your company's values and your commitment to excellence in everything you do.
Exactly. You're telling a story that resonates with what the government is trying to do. You're showing them that you're not just a vendor, you're a true partner who's invested in their success. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. If you were the government, wouldn't you be more likely to choose a company that not only has the skills, but also shares your values and is dedicated to making a positive impact?
That's a really good point. So it's not just about the best tech or the lowest bid. It's about this deeper understanding of the government's needs and aligning your company's strengths with those needs. It's a lot more nuanced and strategic than I think most people realize.
It definitely is. And that's why I think these kinds of deep dives are so important. It helps us understand all the layers of complexity, the motivations behind the scenes, and ultimately make better decisions, whether we're companies going after these contracts or just citizens trying to understand how our government works.
Well said. I think we've all learned a lot today. We went from deciphering a government document to basically thinking like CEOs who are trying to win these major contracts. And I think that's the best part of these deep dives. We don't just absorb information, we spark new ideas, we expand our understanding of how things work, and maybe, just maybe, we get inspired to think a little differently about our own role in all of it.
I completely agree.
So a huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating world. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing those boundaries of knowledge. Until next time, happy diving.